A lot of times they're not marked. You don't know by looking at a cable. You have this cable. There's no markings on the ends. It's just Type-C. How do you know what it is?
Well, guess what we have today? Another connector.
Yeah.
Just what we goddamn needed. Now it's USB Type-C. And we're not here to like debunk or add to the confusion of this whole thing because we're confused. So a lot of things are using Type-C now in a headphone world, in Pro, in you name it, Type-C is taken over because it's quite universal in what it can do. But therein lies the problem.
Yep. Type-C has kind of been branded as the savior, and it's going to do everything for everyone. And it's been taking quite a long time, but we're starting to see adoption. And at this point, it looks inevitable that Type-C probably is the future connector that almost everyone should be putting in most of the devices. And kind of the pros and cons are it's universal. And along with that comes a lot of difficulty. It's capable of doing almost everything you would want a connector to do. It could transmit up to 100 watts in some cases, and it also could have no power at all, be in certain situations not do charging.
It's the what everyone terms the Swiss Army knife, and when you could just have all arounder, it's like you pull it out and I could do this and I could do that, and connect to that, and I could do this.
Well, I guess it's like Windows. Needs to run on all hardware, not like Apple. Only runs on their own. So they have to plan to support everything, and that causes problems.
Yeah, it's anyone who's dealt with that before knows. You can have a plethora of graphics cards in any one Windows computer, where with Apple, you know what you got. It pretty much comes with it, and that's it. So I mean, okay, maybe that's confusing to some people in terms of connectors, but it's the same kind of deal where now you got this one connector. It's got this shape. Right, and every connector like it will plug into the same jack, but they might do different things, or you might have different results from one versus the other, or now there's different cable types using the same connector that do different things.
There's a lot of reason for confusion, and with Type-C, it's probably especially bad because there's so many standards. The standards have been changing over time since it's fairly new, relatively, and it's evolving, and they have the same physical connector. So you see the plug and you say, oh, well, it has Type-C. And you could assume that it does various things, but it may not. And worse yet, you could have a cable, and it looks like a Type-C cable, like these do. These all have Type-C on one end. Some are the standard full-size Type-A to Type-C. And you would assume this cable does things that Type-C does. Some of these are charge-only. They have no data. Most, in fact, are USB 2.0 data. And then some are USB 3.0, 3.1, 3.2 data. And some are non-compliant. Some are designed poorly. Some are very high resistance.
Reminds me of the early days of HDMI. Well, not even that long ago, actually.
Yeah, it's sort of like that.
Yeah.
It's almost worse, though.
Where it's like, Jesus Christ, you pull a cable out of a box somewhere in your house, and it doesn't work.
That's actually kind of not as bad, though, because it's like, well, you just need the newer one.
Well, yeah,
you get the newest standard.
That's
and
the problem.
Work
like they don't put date codes on these things.
There's no way to know if this is the newest.
They all look new to me. Like looking, I go, well, I don't know. This is a new connector to me. I mean, it's just recently, the last 2 years or so, is really, maybe even the last year or so, is where we started seeing this more widespread.
It's pretty common.
And then we pull a cable out of a drawer here, and it's like, well, that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Pull another cable out. Well, that doesn't work.
Or worse yet, it works, but it reduced performance.
Yeah, right.
That's pretty common, especially if you have Type-C charging. Some of these cables are very high resistance because they have very small conductors inside. And you can't tell. You think, well, maybe this is a large physical conductor. This is cabling is large externally. So you assume inside the copper, the electrical connections are beefy. But it doesn't necessarily mean that's the case.
It could be all insulation and strain relief and tiny
and your
wire.
Phone or whatever, your laptop charges slowly. And on top of that, because there's multiple voltages that could be transmitted across this cable and up to 5 amps in some cases, these little rinky-dink things like this type of cable would probably pretty much melt with 5 amps. And of course, they know that. And with the standard in the connector, they incorporated all these things. So in order to be properly compliant and support certain features, you need to have a little chip in there that communicates. And so there's little pins that's specifically there for communication, and it tells the device, hey, I'm capable of this current, or whatever. I'm this type of charger. I want this much
It's
power.
almost like a smart cable. The cable, cable tells the device how it's built or some spec or something, whatever it is, a tiny amount of data that gives it its limitations. And then the device says, okay, now I can know what I can throw at this cable.
But that means the cables cost more then,
Well, yeah, that's true.
and they're more complicated.
Yeah, a talking cable would be more expensive.
Kind of worse yet, though.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're not marked. You don't know by looking at a cable. You have this cable. There's no markings on the ends. It's just Type-C. How do you know what it is?
No idea.
Does it do USB 3? Does it do 3.2?
Well, didn't
Is
our-
it proper?
Though our
You have no idea.
Our Apple laptops from a few years ago, that's where it really started, right? They're using C
Yeah.
for the power.
You're right.
So the power brick is 100 watt, 80 watts, 90 watts. It's putting
87 watts.
they're using C to the laptop, but those Cs are just charge cables.
Right.
You wouldn't plug the other end into something that wouldn't
Yeah,
send
it-
data. Yeah, so I mean that gets really confusing.
Yeah, I remember the first time I got burned with that. I'm like, oh, I have this, Apple
Right.
charge cable. I'm like, I could just use this for data, and then it's like, oh,
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean that's wow. That's the problem with a new connector style like this is that, where the standard was never really finalized, it just keeps expanding.
Well, again, sorry, Microsoft, but it always comes back to them. Same problem. They want to be not only compatible with a lot of things currently, but backwards compatible with
Oh.
everything that's come before
Yeah,
for
right.
30 years.
Sometimes you got to
yeah,
just
and eventually, it
start
just-
from a clean slate. Sometimes you just got to do it, but I get it. I don't know. It's one of those catch-22 scenarios, I guess.
We've had a few products come through our doors, though, that have Type-C charging. They have a connector on them that's Type-C, and they support charging over that interface. But the trouble is they don't support the proper Type-C specification for charging. So if you have a compliant device, if you have a charger from a reputable name brand that follows the USB Type-C specifications, this device will not charge because it will not ask for power properly, and the charger won't put out power. Because you could have multiple voltages running on that cable. So the charger needs to know what voltage you want. Some will default just 5 volts, and they'll just put power out. But
Well,
some won't.
I guess bottom line is that you hope that a lot of these products should come with the cable that will work for that.
Yep.
And then the problem, you just got to keep in mind that being said, if you go to replace that cable at some point, I have no idea what you're doing. Like
Good example, though, yeah. That SSD, portable SSD you had, didn't it come with not the right cable for it?
No, it was a flash reader. We had a dual SD card reader, and it needed a 10 gigabit capable USB Type-C cable, but it came with one that would only do 5 gigabit. It was like 3.1 or whatever. So although the device was capable of reading both SD cards at 500 megabytes a second at the same time, the cable couldn't, right? So you take it out of the box, you plug it into your proper plug on your computer, it wouldn't work properly.
Right.
You had to replace the cable out of the box.
That's pretty bad.
And I think that's probably the worst case scenario, to have these conflicting standards with no markings. Because if you have a cable that your device came with and it'll charge that cable, that's great. That's fine. But what benefit do you have to use Type-C if you're basically relying on this proprietary cable that you know nothing about, that you can't replace readily?
It's pretty obvious just talking about this.
It's
and
a problem.
I'm not that familiar with it, but obviously any of the OEM manufacturers, original equipment guys that are selling product are going to have to include these cables in the box at some length, and or make specific recommendations of what cable to buy by brand.
Right.
Say, look, this is what works. Because if you don't, you're throwing the loop for your customer base. It's brutal.
Well, the whole
know?
point of Type-C is to have one cable to rule them all. And the standard is capable of that, but the current implementations are massively diverse, and it's very problematic.
Well, then you go to the other end, not just the cable. You could have like USB Type-C like charging bricks, wall boards and stuff. And then if they're old enough, then they don't support the new standards. They're lower because there's so many voltages now that so you could plug stuff in and it'll work, but it'll charge at lower rates.
Right.
So
There's like 5 voltages or something like that you could get over Type-C.
You kind of need the original. It almost shows to go you that, I mean, in this, anything that's purchased, say, from the last couple years, even forward another year or two until this all congeals into some standard,
Yeah.
you almost got to go back to the original equipment manufacturer for if you ruin a cable, falls apart, phrase.
Well, I mean, that shouldn't have to be that way, right? Because then what benefit do you have to using Type-C? You might as well use a proprietary cable, because then you know it won't work. Type-C, you look at the cable, it electrically, mechanically fits,
I suppose.
but it doesn't work properly.
But how many you got to rock through before you find one that actually works?
Right, it's
To
messy.
replace the one you just had.
3's the answer.
3,
Mhm.
the magic number.
Yes.
But we got this little tester.
Yeah.
Turns out there's really not a whole lot you could do. This is the only thing I found. It's made by BitTrade 1, USB Cable Checker 2.
Bit trade.
BitTrade 1, yeah.
BITRADE.
It's pretty cool. They're not super expensive. This is obviously just like a continuity checker, but it's somewhat advanced. It'll give you like a little guesstimate, and it'll tell you if there's a little chip in these devices, because some of these have E-chips or various pull-up, pull-down resistors or whatever to configure the device properly. And this will tell you if the cable has them. And usually they're not marked, so it's helpful in that regard.
Does Linus have one of those?
No, he has something much better than this.
That's too bad.
He has an actual tester that'll put
They probably got one in the
data
back
through
room.
the cable, and it'll test the bandwidth and signal integrity and things like that.
Ah,
But this is pretty cool. It's affordable, reasonably. And
under
it'll tell you...
$100.
Yeah, they're a little bit under $100. They're kind of hard to get, though, because
Yeah.
it's like seemingly Japan.
Well, you got it just so we could tell what the hell is hell with it.
Yeah.
We
Right,
got
right,
here with
that's
our
all
own
it matters.
cables.
Because we have
Yeah.
cables you plug in and say, this doesn't work.
You
plug
want
this
to
one,
take
this
it to
doesn't
trade
work.
shows or something and go, okay, nothing works.
And sometimes you get high resistance and you get slow charging or things like that, or it
Yeah.
supports rapid charging, but it's not working because it doesn't have the proper chip in there, doesn't have the right signaling or whatever. But this will kind of mostly tell you most of those things.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because you look at all these cables, they look the same outwardly, right? But you plug them in, you actually test them. And we can go through a selection of a few
Yeah.
of these cables.
Like,
just
what's
to
it say?
get a vague idea. So this guy right here, this says this is a USB 2.0 only cable because none of the 3.2 cables are, the little lights are lit up, and it tells you the signaling resistors this has, and also shows 191 milliohm resistance on this cable. So overall, that's pretty
Wow.
good.
It
That's actually
measures
good.
resistance in milliohms.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's neat.
And you take this guy. This is like you would think this is a charge only cable because there's a lightning bolt on here, right? So to me, that says charge only, or it's made for charging, and it's short, so you would expect that. But you plug this guy in, it's USB 2.0 data, 180 milliohms, and apparently it's got a 5.6K pull-up resistor, which is apparently supposed to signal half amp max current
Where the hell does it say all this?
on the little screen.
Let's see.
It's pretty small.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can't really read on the
Yeah.
cameras,
Well,
but,
still, though, that's pretty cool. It's got a digital,
but all these cables are different.
digital display that shows
Well,
what
at
the
least
hell it says.
these
Yeah.
two are
What it is.
labeled on the cable itself.
That's
though.
an OTG cable, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a little weird cable. But you look at this cable, right? This is an Apple cable.
Yeah.
It's actually a Thunderbolt cable.
That came with my new computer.
Yeah, it came with the Mac
To hook
Studio,
the
right?
monitor up.
So you plug this in, you would expect it would do all the things, light up all the lights, but it doesn't. It only has a CC connection. It doesn't have the USB 3.0 or 3.2 connections. Resistance is good. You can see this one's actually E-marked, so it has little chips in here to signal. And the ground shells are shorted left to right, which I've seen some debate online whether or not that's good or bad, but apparently this
Good
cable's
way to
doing
convey
it.
noise, but
Mm.
that tends to be the.
Yeah. It's
only
some
way to
people
do a
say it should be
shield.
connected on one end, not the other, but I guess the problem is if the cable is unidirectional.
Well, if you're the
or
manufacturer
bidirectional.
controlling the other end, it don't matter.
Right.
You're controlling where the other end of the shield's
Well, yeah,
going.
and they want it to be. You can
making
plug
sure
it in
that
either
noise.
way.
Yeah.
so.
Oh, right. Yeah. But yeah, to put that into another system that might just dump noise into something could be a problem.
Could potentially be problematic. And this cable looks like a normal regular cable, but ta-da, it's USB 3.2. Low resistance, shell shorted A to B. All the pins are present, at least, for this tester.
That's a cool device right
But
there.
it
Yeah.
tells you, right? And
That's assuming
You
you know
wouldn't
what
know.
you're looking for.
That's pretty
well,
clear.
I mean, yeah.
You get used to it though. You can pin down real quick what's going on with that. It might save. It's a time saver.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you got a bunch of cables and you have no idea where you stand, in terms of what works and what doesn't, or if you have a problem, can you imagine spending like a day on a problem?
Yeah.
And it's some goddamn 6-inch adapter.
I've
somewhere?
actually ran into this.
That would suck ass.
Sometimes it's a problem.
Yeah. Microsoft again. See, I was trying to install Windows, and I had a USB 3 flash drive, and apparently on that version of Windows, it had to be USB 2.
Mm.
And I had
Really?
all these errors. Nobody in the world had this problem. I found one guy. It took me 2 weeks, and I figured it
So
out.
let me get this straight. The cable was too good for this.
no, it was just a flash drive. it was a USB 3 flash drive.
It couldn't handle that.
Yeah. And
Really?
then I found one guy that said, "Oh, yep, for that version of Windows, it needs to be 2.0."
That's like the stupidest.
And
thing
then I
ever.
put it to a different drive. Worked.
Well, we've had that happen before. you could never have the latest, greatest thumb drive because it almost
Well-
never seems to work with anything.
People assume everything's backwards compatible, and it should be generally, but it isn't always.
I got a new thumb drive a couple months ago. It's got USB little. First of all, you can close it so it has no connector showing.
Uh-huh.
And on one end, you slide out a USB Type A.
Right.
Samsung.
Wow. So I don't remember,
Yeah,
probably.
probably.
And then the other end has a USB Type C you could slide out.
Yeah.
So wow, one thumb drive does the old school stuff and supposedly, and the new school stuff, which is like That's what I got to get because I'm tired of dealing with this shit. So anyway, that allows me to go back and forth. I haven't used it yet, but it would allow me to go back and forth.
Yeah, I got one of those probably 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't use them anymore because they're too slow.
Yeah.
They don't make high performance versions like that.
But it's always the type of thing where, okay, now I still got the Type A thumb drives, but I need an adapter cable to hook it up to my Type C freaking laptop to get anything on or off it, which is ridiculous. I'm like, well, I'm going to get one thumb drive does all, and I haven't tested it, but supposedly it does what it does. It's probably Samsung.
There's probably newer ones that are faster now, but I haven't looked in a while.
I'm not worried about speed. I just want to be able to get a goddamn file on or off something. Anyway, we should probably wrap this up about
Yes.
more of a bitch fest than anything about the new C. It's not really, it hasn't turned into a huge issue, but it's just something that you got to be aware of. That
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Well, you're always second guessing the cable.
Every time.
And especially for those that are a little less tech literate, you wouldn't expect it could be the cable sometimes because maybe it works on this device. So you're thinking, well, the cable isn't bad, and it isn't, but it's the wrong cable for this device. And the biggest issue is people aren't implementing the standards properly every time. So you get this cable with this random device. It works with this one. You don't know it needs to stay with this one because it's a weird cable.
So as of today, 2022, buyer beware on Type C cables.
Right. It's a good standard. It's probably the future.
Absolutely.
It supports everything, but currently messy implementation.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it smooths out in the future.
So remember, everybody, we got Chicago show coming up. It's a Can Jam in Chicago. I think it's the first time we're in Chicago. It's a brand new hotel. I think it's a Marriott. So anyway, you go to canjam.org, look it up, see when it's happening. But it's third week of June, that weekend. I think 19th or something like that.
Yeah.
So we'll be there with a lot of nice stuff. The new DCS stuff we'll have, the Lena, and all our model headphones, and we'll have an audio. And yeah, see you there. Thumbs us up. Thank you, everyone.